Welcome to the extraordinary marriage. Did you ever stop to think about who does what in your marriage? Those responsibilities, it goes beyond who makes the most money or how much you have in your paycheck. It goes beyond that because it takes a lot of different things to run a household. And if you don't stop and think about and come together and talk about who's doing what, is this working for us? Then at some point there may be some frustration, some resentment. But if you stop and talk about it, you can eliminate those fusses and those fights by doing some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So today we're back. It's May, and I have my husband, Jeff, with me.
Hi, everybody.
Last month, we did not get around to recording because things got too busy. So I'm so glad to have him back this month. Here's what we're going to talk about: responsibilities in the household. And we're going to cover a lot of different things because when you have success in your household, you've got some balance going on, you're both taking part, you're both being helpful, then there's more happiness in the marriage, because if you don't, there's more frustration and fusses. So here we go. I believe that the first place that we learn how to run our own households is our parents. And so
True.
Jeff and I are going to talk a little bit today about how we, how we have brought forth what our parents did and how we put those together little by little. So, Jeff, well, I'll start out so you kind of know what to do
Sure.
on that. All right. So first of all, I know my parents are still married. I think they're past their 60th wedding anniversary. And that doesn't always mean everything's perfect, but it means they figured it out. They took time, they respected each other, and they have stayed together for 60 years. And something that I realized even the other day, I was thinking about how much challenge there is in families, how much trouble there is in families. And often it stems from our childhoods. So if you had a really rough childhood, really stop and think about your family and analyze and think, what was good, what was bad, what was challenging, and don't bring that with you into your relationship that you have now, because it just means trouble. But for me, my parents got along great. They both did different things in the household. So it went like this. Pretty much, my dad worked, and my mom kind of ran the household and the kids. Whenever Daddy was asked to do something like take Connie to ballet class, he took us to class and he took me to class and he picked me up. So a lot of times he ran some of the evening errands or ran us where we needed to go, like, to the school for something and that kind of stuff. My parents were very participatory. Is that a word?
Participatory.
Participatory. They participated. They made sure that they came to all the things that I did and that kind of thing. And they kind of divided up their work that way. Daddy worked and he made most of them. He made the money. Mother ran the household. Did Daddy did the grocery shopping, actually. Some people hate the grocery store, right? And others love it. So Daddy did the grocery shopping also because he was always paying attention to saving some money on groceries. So he did that. He even cooked a little bit. I think I mentioned it before, like, what I really remember is the hamburger helper that he didn't cook quite good enough. That potato stroganoff, he didn't cook quite good enough. But I'm sure he did other things also. Isn't it funny how we remember the things that were like, oh me, right? Um, so pretty much that. He kind of controlled the money, and mother agreed to that. Sometimes people don't say anything and they're not really agreeing to that. But if you don't say anything or have a conversation with your spouse or come to an agreement, then you're kind of stuck with status quo, whatever it is they think or like what they were brought up with. So with that, I say pretty much daddy worked, mother ran the household and the kids and washed the clothes and cleaned the house and that kind of thing. When I was a teenager, she actually went to work at the hospital and did EKGs. And that's probably when daddy started cooking dinner. It was when I was a teenager. That's why I remember that. I also remember my dad coming home, and when mother was there, he had a lazy back chair. Anybody else have a dad like that? And he had a lazy back chair, and he would pop that footrest up and he would take a little snooze after work. But I think that if I worked all the way and all day, because I've always worked my own schedule, I think I might do that too. But you haven't ever done that, have you?
No. But he worked in the warehouse where
Oh,
he walked miles every day. And so, you got to cut him a little slack. And he gets home, he has a nice lazy boy to sit in and pops the thing up. I'd probably doze off myself.
and probably in a warehouse, it's like heat and cold, whatever the temperature is outside. I never heard him talk about that, but I did hear him talk about walking a whole lot and that he didn't need to exercise because he got plenty of exercise at work.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of remember that, and that would be what I brought into my marriage. So let's talk about your mom and dad first, and then
Okay.
we'll talk about how we brought that together and some different things that we've learned through the years.
Okay. Um, well, my dad was in the Marine Corps, and when he went to Vietnam, my mom had us all by herself. So
Uh,
my mom learned to do a lot of things and do a lot of different things. And of course, there was four boys, and so she had her hands full. My grandmother came to live with us while my dad was in Vietnam. But when he came home, they did things together. My mom worked outside the home also. And so she would go to work, and my dad would be doing the Marine Corps thing. Or when he got out of the Marine Corps, he went to work for the Georgia JOD, the
DOJ?
DOJ. No, that's the Department of
Of
Justice.
course, I wouldn't know
He,
what that
he
is.
worked for the road people, whatever that is, okay, for the state of Georgia. And they both did different things. But when they came home, everybody had a job to do. In other words, there was four boys, so all four boys had, besides cleaning your room, sometimes we would have to vacuum. My mom very early on taught us all how to wash clothes.
I like it.
We did not have a dishwasher, so we had dishwashing hands, okay. But we also had a lot of fun. We did all kinds of things as brothers would do, shooting BB guns at each other and that kind of stuff. But everybody had a job to do because that's the way my parents were. My mom was very organized, and she believed that, with the growth in your life would come because of the responsibilities that you were taking on. And so keeping your room cleaned, which is always a challenge for boys for some reason.
And girls.
Okay.
Oh
All
yeah.
right. So we'll give you both of us were pretty
Yeah,
bad
when
at
we got
that.
married, I found stuff that I had been missing for years under my bed and in that walk-in closet, baby. I mean, like tons of stuff. I'm like, here, it was like a treasure hunt.
Well, my dad being the Marine Corps and the inspector that he was and so forth,
Mm.
when we tossed stuff in the closet, we would come home and we'd find all that stuff tossed out in the bedroom because it wasn't put in there properly.
Your dad did that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, my dad was yeah. But we got taught a lot of good things, but most of the time, my mom took care of the stuff inside the house. Now, this is not passing judgment on who does what,
Right.
but she did most of the stuff in the house, and my dad took care of the outside chores or the cars or, painting or whatever needed to be done. So, that's kind of the way I grew up.
And see, as I hear you say that, it reminds me that my mother cleaned up my room. My mother folded my clothes and put them in my drawers. And I do recall her saying to me when I was a teenager, she says, Connie, what happened to you? You used to be neat. And she's not realizing that
She
she's the
was the
one that was
neat.
neat. And, that kind of goes back to the personality styles and how some people, like your dad, evidently
Yep.
expected that perfection and that neatness. And then there's others of us who, oh my gosh, since I grew up with a very structured and neat mom, I want to be that way, but it is against my nature and my DNA. I'm just not built that way. So I can only be what I can be. So when we take the things from our parents, we're going to realize that we can't be exactly like them. We have to be ourselves. We have to find our place. We have to bring our all that we know as kids. It's important to talk about it. And so often couples get busy in life, and I'm sure we did the same thing. We got busy with life, and heavens to Betsy, nothing got talked about until there was a little friction and a little frustration. And then, since I'm a talker, you
Mhm.
heard about it, didn't you?
Well, it's the only way to do it.
Yeah, you heard about it.
You
But
have to talk
then,
about it.
since we didn't talk about it beforehand, you heard about it in my frustration, and that
True.
comes out a little differently than the rest. So, it's really so important to purposely. I've just realized lately as I'm getting older that I get so stuck in certain things that I'm busy, 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 busy with, and I'm a person who loves to enjoy life. And suddenly I'm not enjoying life because I'm just staying in the busy, 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 busy place. It might be with your kids, it might be with work, it might be with everything. But unless you stop and think about it and figure it out, you're going to get stuck there. And there's a lot of frustration. And guess what? All that's negative energy, and it causes you to be tired. It causes people to get sick. And
Mhm.
so it's so important not to pin up frustrations, but to talk about things before they have festered.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's talk about how we brought that together then. When we first got married, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to cook. I had never washed clothes. Please don't think any less of me, okay? But it's like I had never washed clothes, didn't know how to cook. I hadn't kept house except for when my mom would say, "Hey, Connie, did you do your chores today?" She's at work because it's when I'm a teenager. She's at work, and did you do your chores today? Like, did you? I'm sure she said, "Did you vacuum the house?" And I said, "Oh yes, mother, I vacuumed the house." But for me, vacuuming the house was maybe the hallway and the den. There's 3 more rooms there, and I didn't even realize that until the last few years that, gosh, when she said vacuum the house, to me, that was vacuuming the house, but that was not all of it, right? So, anyway, somehow, what we see as something, a different picture for someone else. But you know what? She didn't ever say, "Hey, Connie, and tell me that." There goes using those words. She didn't tell me. So I didn't realize, or I've been like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that." I'll vacuum the whole thing. Yeah.
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
that's part of the training as parents. When we ask a child or a young person, a teenager, to do something, we need to make sure we explain, okay, vacuuming means this, or sweeping means this, or whatever.
And when we're trying to work things out with our spouse, we have to do the same because you and I, even though we've been married over 40 years, I think it's worse than it used to be, actually. I
Really?
know, frown, frown. Yes, I do. It's like we say things in an opposite way. And I say something and you say no. And then you repeat the same thing I just said to you in another set of words. I'm like, you're saying the same thing. Anyway, yeah, we've had a little bit. So see, when two people live together, there's always going to be a little bit of this and that,
Well,
right?
there's always a growing curve. There's always things to be done
Well, and so as we got married and we brought we started living together and
after we
um,
got married.
after we got married and we started putting together our household and who did what and all that, we just kind of blended all that in. But let's think about that. So your dad went into your room and clean and said, "Hey, get this clean." And my mom said, "Connie, you need to clean your room." Daddy would have never paid attention to that. And so right there is a difference. I think maybe I hadn't ever heard you say that before.
Well, I think that my mom walked around and in her frustration, she said, Tom, you need to address this with your sons.
Okay,
So,
I can hear her saying that.
yes, exactly.
I can hear her saying that. "Tom, you need to do something with your boys."
That's right.
Jeff has 3 brothers.
Yes. Besides, take us out back and spank us, you know.
Well, so fortunately for us, we worked most of that out pretty good because we both don't like
Conflict.
confrontation.
Yeah.
But if you have a couple and both people don't mind confrontation, woo, baby, it could get pretty hot because now you're using your words and you're both using your words because you didn't talk about it before. But we didn't like confrontation. And so we really didn't have a lot. But you just mentioned the other day about early on and your you decided to bring a guy home, and I think we had babies at this point. So I don't know if it was one or two, but we had babies, and you decided to bring a friend home from work. This is before we had cell phones, so he couldn't text me, right? They're out and about, they're working. He was in insurance. And go ahead and tell your side on that.
I thought we had put the story behind us, but
Oh, I think it's a great story. Go ahead.
okay. So Jay and I were out and we were doing insurance calls. And so we were near the house. So I said, hey, let's just go by my house for lunch. Not thinking about it, just going to go by, grab a sandwich, and then go back to work. Um, Always call and talk to your wife before you bring somebody home.
Well, I think that, some people might have that perfect wife, the one who keeps the house perfect. She gets up and she gets dressed and puts herself together first thing in the morning. The children are dressed, the toys are in their place. But that wasn't the thing with
Saw that movie.
me. So you come in about lunchtime and knock on the door, and you have a friend with you. Does anybody relate to that? And I don't like confrontation, but when I'm frustrated, I was like, oh my gosh, this is from my side. He's bringing someone in the house. I didn't know he was coming. There's toys everywhere. The kids aren't dressed. I'm not fixed. The kitchen's a mess, blah, blah, blah. Right. And so, yeah, he got a big earful. Now, here's the thing on Jeff Durham. He learns pretty quickly. He hears it. He doesn't like conflict. And so he learns really quickly. And so he never did that again. I'm
Never,
so
ever.
sorry. I wish I could be that perfect wife and have everything in its perfect place and be okay with that. But I'm not. So it is what it is, right?
But prior planning, it is always a wise idea to call your spouse and say, "Hey, is it okay?" Instead of just arbitrarily thinking, "Oh, I can just take him by for lunch." It's always better to speak with your spouse, especially nowadays. We have such convenience with cell phones and that type of thing. There's no reason why you shouldn't say something before you just show up.
And that definitely goes back to communication.
Yes, absolutely.
Communication. Never assume the other person's thinking the same thing as you. Never assume you think alike. And communicate and talk about it. And that keeps down a lot of ruckus, right?
Yep.
So let's think about, before we move on, let's think about all the different things that we have to do in our household, all the things it takes to run a household. Because when we are young people and we get married, we have no idea unless our parents have made us do chores. And I don't think I did very many chores, to be honest. I bet you did more than I did.
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that my dad made me do chores. Even
Well,
things I didn't know how to do, I had to learn to do.
and the thing is, in this day and time, even a lot of kids aren't asked to do anything. And it also goes back to personality styles. There is that person who runs their household like your dad probably would. He was a Marine person, right?
Yeah,
But there's many people who just don't ask anyone to do anything. That would be you. You would not ask anyone else to do anything. I don't think you ever asked me to do anything. Thank goodness my mom hammered into me to be a fair person, to be thoughtful, and to do my part and not take advantage of the other person. If she
sure.
wouldn't have done that, I would be oblivious and I just wouldn't realize what needs to be done. We were talking about that earlier.
Mhm.
That some of us are oblivious and we don't even know, or if we've never seen our parents have a good balance, maybe mom did everything, or maybe dad does everything.
Yeah,
And when there's an imbalance, it causes frustration. So let's just run through like some different things. I know for me right now, um, you make most of the money. But I have always done the grocery shopping, the household shopping, bought, shop for clothes and shoes for everybody. The groceries, I do the cooking, I wash the clothes, sweep the floors when they get swept. Anyway, I do all of those kind of things. And I've always had, either I taught ballet and made some, I made extra money to supplement there, or I was a Mary Kay consultant and sales director. I made money there. And so I've always done something to contribute. And I like that. And I need that something else, I think, rather than just raising kids and cleaning house and that kind of thing. So everybody has to balance that different.
sure.
And also take note that if you both work full time, oh my goodness, if one person's doing everything, they're gonna, at some point they're gonna get resentful and frustrated about it. But
Mhm.
Share what all you do, hun, because like, sometimes people don't think about all the things. I'll fill in when you don't, if you don't have something.
Okay, so my job in the house is to take the trash out
Oh, and he does it so well.
every
I
week
never have to ask.
as soon as it gets full, you know?
Somebody else is going, oh man, I have to tell my husband every time.
Yeah, well, you know what? And there, I think it goes back to personalities. I think that sometimes,
Mm.
you know, guys, we're more. I mean, listen, there's things in the house, and you might say, "Man, this place is messed up. We need to clean it up." And I'm looking around and saying, "It looks lived in to me. I don't think we need to clean up." You know, so it's one of those things that I think that sometimes, like you said, we're oblivious. But I think that outside, if there's anything outside needs to be done, grass cutting, whatever, I feel like that's my responsibility
I'm
because
so glad.
that's the way my dad was, you know. But
And if I say, honey, the bushes need to be cut, because there again, maybe you're not noticing how all over the place they are because that doesn't matter to you so much,
correct.
but you're willing to, you say, okay, you don't give me any hard time. I'm very blessed. I know, girls. Uh, very blessed. You go and cut those bushes.
Well, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
when it's brought to my attention, I'm going to take care of it.
And this keeps all the ruckus and the fussing down, doesn't it? I don't have to
You
nag. I hate to nag. That's negative. It like gives me negative energy. It's
guys,
miserable.
I don't like it when she nags either.
Nag. Do not nag.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't have to because you usually do it immediately. You are Johnny on the spot, do it immediately. All right. So outside work.
That's because if I don't do it right then, I'll forget it by
Oh,
tomorrow.
I thought you were gonna say something else. I'm like, hey, wait, what? Okay. So out all the outside work,
Mhm.
making the money, depositing the paycheck. He lets me know he deposited the paycheck. That's always a good thing. Um, budgeting. I was always the budgeter
Absolutely.
because my daddy taught me about money, and so I'm the budgeter. And I was the tightwad.
Well, the truth of the matter is, we wouldn't have a lot of the stuff or be where we are financially if it wasn't for your financial guru or whatever you want to
Oh,
call that.
ha. Well, thank you very
Okay.
much.
I mean, it's the truth. You know, we've shared stuff with other couples, some of our tenants. We've shared things about how to have a balanced budget or how to live within your means. Because so many people nowadays, they live from paycheck to paycheck or credit card to credit card.
Hey, and to be honest, probably when we were young, we always did that too because we invested in a home and we had to pay our house payment
That's true.
and all our bills. And so, yeah, we have a few rental properties. And that's a whole nother thing, actually, is rental properties. When people move out and people don't treat their home because they're renting it, my mom taught me that if I'm using something that somebody else owns that I take better care of it, but that is not usually the thing. And so, wow, we put a lot of work and a lot of money in refurbishing and we painted ourselves, we cleaned carpets, we did all that kind of stuff. And I will
Yeah,
say we went and did that together, but just knowledge is more than my own. And so like when something needed to be built or fixed or hammered or sawed and all that kind of stuff, he's gained that knowledge. That makes me think back whenever we first got married and we were
cutting chickens.
no, not cutting
Oh,
chickens.
okay.
That's in the first episode. No, whenever I said, honey, I would like some wallpaper in the bathroom. And you looked at me and you said, do you know how to do wallpaper? And I was like, no, but I could figure it out. And you
Mhm.
helped me put wallpaper up and we did a great job, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. And so really he's like, he'll do whatever I ask. I know, don't throw rocks at me, girls. I know. Not that many people have a husband that does whatever they ask them to do. Like, this goes back to the personality styles. Jeff does immediately whatever needs to be done. And I say, oh, yeah, I'll add that to my list. I'll do that on another day. I'll do that someday. Do you know there's no day called someday?
That's true.
Anyway, so pretty much, if we were having company, he will help me clean the house.
Mhm.
Yeah. So pretty much he does the outside work, everything on the outside. He helps paint the house inside, like we just did the upstairs and a bedroom. Um, and so, but he makes the money. And so I take care of the house and the kids and that kind of stuff. I think we've had a great balance. And there's probably even more things taking care. Cars, maintenance, washing cars. Um,
It's the same thing inside, honey.
Yeah,
You
there's
do all the different things that are inside.
so the thing is to make a list of all the things outside that need to be done, all the things inside, all the things that are done daily, all the things that are done weekly, uh, and really looking at those things. Now, here's the second thing. Different people enjoy doing different things, and
True.
sometimes we have to do stuff we hate.
True.
But different people are better at some things than others. Like when we actually put down our own wood floor.
That was a job.
Well, you know what? I really didn't like to have to calculate those measurements and do cutting. And so now, if I had to, I probably could. But
Hmm.
he was willing to do that. And if he was willing to do that, I was willing to get on my knees. Oh my gosh, I was so sore.
Yeah.
Get on my knees to lay. We actually did a tile floor in our kitchen, and we also did our wood floor in our whole downstairs, except for the kitchen. So, see, we balanced each other all through the years, and that's how we stayed married for 40 years and happy about it. You know, um, just that. So we put those floors down together.
Hmm.
And something that we learned when we were doing that is the importance of talking and letting the other person know what you're doing. I mean, think about if somebody was carrying in a granite countertop. Now, we didn't do that, but I watch a lot of HGTV. And somebody's carrying in a granite countertop and you got six guys around it. Well, if nobody's giving instruction on which direction you're going, you're going to start pulling at each other. You're going to knock that granite countertop into the door frame and leave dents. You're going to make a big mess. You may drop it. You may smash your fingers.
Yeah.
But if you stop and talk about it and pay attention to what you're doing, you can do it well. You can do it well because you make a plan.
Yeah.
You converse. You listen to each other. Do y'all hear what I'm saying here? So I think it's a really important thing when we are figuring out what we're each responsible for, because in order to keep a good work and family life balance, you have to communicate the things that are most important to you. Now, I would say for Jeff and I, going back to communication styles, I always communicate what's best for me. Well, yeah, probably. But I communicate what's most important to me. He's always going to know that. Now, I will tell you, with him sitting here, I'm sure he does not always tell me that. But you know what? He's not a person who has anger or holds a grudge. He doesn't do that. So I guess we're still doing okay because we're still doing okay. But some people do hold a grudge. And so that's so important to talk about it. So you can keep that fair and good and happy and healthy work life balance. And if two people are making the money, bringing it in and working equal hours, one person may be making more money than the other, but you got to figure it out. Only the two of you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think that comes back to communication, understanding what needs to get done. And whenever it's more than just the couple, when you add kids into that,
oh yeah,
it
we did talk a lot of
complicates
that.
it even more. So communication is so important for husband and wife, but also understanding, okay, Johnny's got to be at the baseball field, Susie's got to be at the dance thing. I
Absolutely.
mean, all those things have to be communicated, because if you don't communicate it, um, Johnny's going to be at the baseball field, and
We're going to leave them there.
where are the where's your mom and dad at? Well, she went to go pick up. Yeah. So, that kind of
Oh
thing is
gosh, yeah.
always so important. And we know everybody has very busy lives. And I mean, and in today's society, it's even worse than when we were growing up as kids. I can remember, like you said, your dad came home, sat down in the easy chair, read the paper. It was a relaxed evening type thing. We don't have that anymore. People are going here and there all the time. So that communication, working together to keep that balance, is so important.
Well, I'm going to throw my daughter in here because I was just talking to her, and she is a doer. She's an organizer. She's a planner. They have four kids, and That's what she was saying. Oh my gosh, I've said yes to too many things. I'm doing too much and I'm not enjoying anything because I'm run ragged.
Mm,
Well, somebody is shaking their head whenever I say that. And so when we get to that point, because that also causes stress in families, we
absolutely.
get to that point, we have to pay attention to that and make a decision of what we can let go of. Because if we don't make a decision, then we're doing everything not as well as we could be, and it's causing strife in our marriage.
That's true.
All right, so let me run to this because somebody's getting ready to come to my door. Um, this week, what I want you to do, there is a class in my courses. It's called a couples roadmap. This gets you started in stopping and thinking and dividing up things. And so I just urge you to go to that, a couples roadmap, and make a plan for what you want to do. It's very inexpensive. You are worth it. All right, so we are
Jeff,
and Connie, and here we are again, and we have just finished 6 months of our podcast. So I hope you've
awesome.
enjoyed it. If you have, be sure and like it or share it or subscribe and help us get the word out so that other couples can figure it out too. Lots of love.
And have an extraordinary marriage.
Absolutely. See you next week.